It's funny how for the longest time we were always told, like, to find opportunity, you gotta go to the big city, right?
Right.
But more and more these days, you hear these little stories and you see little bits of data that make you think, like, maybe that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe the places that we used to think of as kind of like off the beaten path are actually becoming the new centers of, opportunity.
Yeah.
We're the West Virginia Media Lab podcast, and this is exactly the kind of shift that we've been looking into lately.
Absolutely. I mean, for decades now, it's been kind of a one-way flow, right?
Wow.
People moving from rural areas to cities. But what we're seeing now is this really interesting kind of change in direction.
Right.
In a recent post on the West Virginia Media Lab blog, it's titled Remote Work Revolution in the Mountains, How West Virginia is Winning the Telecommuting Game. And it really got us thinking about this in a new way.
Yeah, for sure. That post on our blog took a deep look at how and where people are choosing to live and work now. And it makes a pretty strong argument that West Virginia is becoming like a major player in this whole remote work thing.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about a few people here and there.
Right.
The blog post really emphasizes how the state is actively working to attract remote workers.
Absolutely.
And they're seeing some pretty big changes because of it.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who wants to understand this like big shift that's happening, we're going to break it all down for you.
Okay, so let's start with, the basics. We're talking about West Virginia, a state that has historically been so tied to industries like coal mining, manufacturing, energy. I mean, those have been the backbone of the state's economy for like forever.
Yeah.
But as that blog post pointed out, there's something new emerging, this whole digital economy.
And the timing of this shift is really interesting, right?
It is.
I mean, the blog post talks about how remote work has basically become so accepted now that where you live and where you work don't have to be the same place anymore. So all those geographic limitations that we used to think about, they're just not as rigid anymore.
They're not.
And West Virginia seems to have really recognized that and seen it as like a big opportunity.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that they're not focusing on the traditional things that states usually do to attract businesses.
Right.
Like they're not just offering tax breaks or building new industrial parks or whatever.
Yeah.
The blog post really emphasizes how they're promoting West Virginia's natural beauty.
Yeah, those mountains.
Those mountains.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they're also highlighting the cost of living, which is so much lower than in a lot of big cities. It's like they're saying, hey, the rules of the game have changed. Look what we have to offer.
Right. It's like a whole new way of thinking about economic advantage,
Totally.
It's not just about factories and infrastructure anymore. It's about quality of life.
Exactly.
It's about access to nature. It's about affordability.
And that's what a lot of people are looking for these days.
Especially people who can work from anywhere. Which brings us to the Ascend WV initiative.
Right. That was like the centerpiece of that blog post.
Yeah, and it's not just like a marketing campaign or something.
No, it's not.
It's a real program with like real incentives to get remote workers to move to West Virginia.
Yeah.
So they're offering $12,000 in cash, paid out over 2 years.
Wow.
But it goes so much deeper than that. It's like they've designed this whole package to help people integrate into the West Virginia lifestyle.
Yeah, the blog post talks about how they offer a year of free outdoor recreation.
I know. I love that. It's not just a few discounts.
No, it's not.
It's like full access to all the amazing things you can do in West Virginia. Whitewater rafting, skiing, hiking, you name it.
It's a real immersion in that mountain life.
And they also give you access to co-working spaces, so you can connect with other remote workers.
Yeah, that community aspect is huge.
It is. The blog post really stressed that. Ascend WV is about creating a support system for people. It's not just about attracting them, it's about making them feel at home.
It's an investment. That's what the blog post called it. An investment in these remote workers.
Right. So for anyone listening, why should you care about this West Virginia story?
Right.
Well, the blog post lays out this really compelling case for what it calls mountain living.
Yeah.
And it hits on some pretty basic things that I think a lot of us want.
Like what?
Well, for starters, cost of living.
Right.
The blog post compares West Virginia to places like San Francisco and New York.
Oh, yeah.
And the difference is just staggering. Housing is so much more affordable. Taxes are lower. Your money just goes so much further.
Yeah, that's a big deal for a lot of people.
It is. I mean, imagine being able to actually save money, you know?
Right. Or even just having more breathing room in your budget.
Exactly.
Now, I know what some people might be thinking, like, what about the internet?
Right.
Isn't the internet terrible in the mountains?
Yeah, that's the old stereotype.
But the blog post tackles that head on.
It does.
It talks about how West Virginia has been making huge strides in expanding fiber optic internet access.
Through programs like Gig Ready.
Exactly. They're making sure that people have reliable, high-speed internet,
Mm.
which is obviously essential for remote work.
Right. You got to be able to do those Zoom calls without any interruptions.
And you want to be able to stream movies and
Sure.
play video games and all that stuff.
Yeah. So they're not just saying they have good internet.
No, they're not.
They're actually putting in the work to make it a reality.
And that takes away a big barrier for a lot of people who are considering moving.
Totally.
And then there's the outdoor recreation. I mean, come
Oh
on.
my gosh. Yeah.
The blog post makes it sound like paradise.
It does. Hiking trails, mountain biking, kayaking, skiing, right there in your backyard.
Yeah, you don't have to drive for hours or spend a ton of money to get to it.
Right. And the blog post specifically mentions the new River Gorge National Park and Preserve,
Oh, yeah,
which is like a huge draw for people who love the outdoors.
it is. And it really highlights this contrast, between the way a lot of us live now.
Yeah. Like stuck in our apartments, working out on our Peloton bikes.
Exactly. And then the possibility of actually living in a place where you can step outside and be in nature.
Right.
And let's not forget about the overall pace of life,
Oh.
which is something that the blog post kind of touches on. West Virginia offers a slower, more relaxed way of living.
It does. It's all about community, connection to nature, just a more balanced existence.
It's like the opposite of that always on, always hustling mentality that you find in a lot of big cities.
Yeah. It's like a breath of fresh air.
So the blog post really tries to make all these benefits tangible, by telling the stories of real people who have made the move.
Yes.
Like James, the software engineer who moved from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
He was paying a fortune for a tiny apartment and spending hours commuting every day.
Right.
And now he's living in West Virginia, close to the Monongahela National Forest.
His cost of living went way down.
And his quality of life went way up.
Yeah.
His story really makes you think about what's really important.
It does. Like, is it worth being in a big city if it means sacrificing so much?
Exactly.
And then there's Emily.
Oh, yeah, Emily, the marketing executive.
Who moved from New York City to Morgantown.
Right. And she talks about how burned out she was.
Yeah. The constant pressure, the long hours, the crazy cost of living. It was just too much.
It was. And moving to West Virginia, it gave her this whole new perspective.
Yeah.
She found a more affordable lifestyle. She connected with a really cool community. She even found a great co-working space.
I love that quote from her that the blog post highlights. I can actually hear myself think now.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
It is. It speaks to that need for mental space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For peace and quiet.
Yeah. Something that can be so hard to find in a big city.
Right. So these stories really bring it all to life,
They do.
They show that this isn't just some abstract idea. It's actually happening. Right. And it's not just about individual people either.
Right.
The blog post talks about the impact that all these new residents are having on West Virginia itself.
Absolutely, like the economic impact.
Yeah. They're bringing in income from outside the state, supporting local businesses, creating jobs.
Right, because they're still working for companies that are based elsewhere.
Right. So their salaries are coming from outside West Virginia.
Exactly. But they're spending that money in West Virginia.
Which is a huge boost to the local economy.
It is. And the blog post also talks about how this is diversifying the workforce in West Virginia.
Which is so important. For years, young people have been leaving the state to find opportunities elsewhere.
Right. But now they're coming back.
And people from other parts of the country are moving there, too.
Bringing their skills and their perspectives.
Right. And that creates a more resilient and adaptable economy.
It does.
And the blog post also mentions this really interesting trend of entrepreneurship.
Well,
Like new startups are popping up, co-working spaces are opening, networking groups are forming.
it's like a whole new ecosystem is developing.
It is. And that's a really positive sign. It shows that this isn't just a temporary thing.
Right. It's something that could really transform the state's economy in the long term.
So looking ahead, what does the blog post say about the future of this remote work revolution in West Virginia?
Well, they're definitely not slowing down.
No, they're not.
The blog post talks about how they're continuing to invest in broadband expansion.
To make sure that even more communities have access to high-speed internet.
Exactly. And they're also building more co-working spaces and innovation hubs.
And they're actively marketing the state as a great place for remote workers.
They're really going all in on this.
They are, and the message is clear. West Virginia is not just a beautiful place to visit.
No, it's not.
It's a place where you can build a career and a life.
It's a place where you can thrive.
And it really challenges that old idea that you have to choose between opportunity and quality of life.
Yeah. West Virginia's saying you can have both.
So going back to what we were talking about at the beginning about how the map of opportunity is being redrawn.
Right.
What's happening in West Virginia is a perfect example of that.
It is. It shows how a state can take advantage of this new reality.
Right. And create a more vibrant and prosperous future for itself.
So for everyone listening, think about this.
Mm-hmm.
What if we all questioned our assumptions about where opportunity really lies?
Yeah. What if we opened ourselves up to the possibility that it might be in places we never expected?
Maybe in the mountains of West Virginia.
Maybe somewhere else entirely.
The point is to be open to new possibilities.
To challenge the old ways of thinking.
And to see the world with fresh eyes.
From the West Virginia Media Lab, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. The West Virginia Media Lab is all about celebrating our state and its people, businesses, stories, news, and folklore. If you love West Virginia like we do, be sure to comment below, then subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to stay connected. Until next time, stay wild, wonderful, West Virginia.